Hey everyone, welcome to your jurisprudence deep dive. We're gonna crack the code of legal philosophy today. Don't worry, we've got your back, especially if you're prepping for a jurisprudence exam. This is gonna be like your secret weapon.
Yeah, jurisprudence, it can seem like a bit of a daunting mountain to climb, all these abstract ideas, but really it's about wrestling with those big questions about law. What is law, really? Where does its power even come from? What is justice?
And how do you knock those exams out of the park? We're gonna dive into those core theories, break down those big landmark cases, and we're even gonna give you the secret handshake of legal lingo. Ready to make legal philosophy, not just understandable, but kind of fun.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go.
So think of the major theories and thinkers in jurisprudence, kind of like different schools of thought,
Yeah.
each one with its own perspective on what law is and how it should work.
Exactly. So first you've got natural law with big names like Aristotle and Aquinas. These folks, they believe that law and morality are like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, absolutely. Inseparable.
If the law isn't morally right, then it's not really a law at all, is it?
That's the idea.
Right.
Then you've got legal positivism.
Hmm.
Thinkers like Hart and Jeremy Bentham, they're drawing a clear line in the sand between law and morality.
Right.
For them, law is all about a system of rules created by humans.
Okay.
And those rules are valid whether we like them or not. Morals, that's a whole different thing.
It's kind of like, hey, the law is the law, even if it feels, a little morally iffy sometimes.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Then you've got legal realism. We're talking Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., Carl Llewellyn. They're focused on how the law actually plays out in the real world. It's not just those fancy rules written down somewhere. It's about what judges actually do when they're in those courtrooms.
So for them, it's about action, not just the words on a page.
Exactly, you got it.
Okay.
Now, here's a study tip for you. When you're trying to get your head around all these theories, don't get lost in all the details. Try to boil each theory down to its essence. What's the main argument?
Right. What's at the heart of it?
Exactly.
Okay, and here's another tip for you while you're at it. Jot down the weaknesses of each theory, the criticisms. It was like having a cheat sheet for those essays.
Absolutely.
Right. Being able to analyze and critique, that'll make your arguments shine.
Definitely. That's what you want. Okay, enough theory for now.
Yeah.
Let's see these legal philosophies duke it out in actual courtrooms. We're talking landmark cases here, the ones that every law student, needs to know.
Think of it like those legal dramas on TV, but with real life consequences.
Yeah, high stakes.
Right. So for example, R.V. Brown, that case really pits natural law against legal positivism. It's a battle over consent and harm.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating case. Great example of how different theories can lead to totally different conclusions about, the same set of facts.
Right. So you see how important the theory is.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then there's Riggs v. Palmer, which is kind of a head scratcher.
Oh, yeah.
Can a murderer inherit from their victim? I mean, this case really makes you think about the purpose of law. Should it always be strictly applied, or is there room for moral considerations?
It really makes you question the whole purpose, like you said. Is it just blind adherence to the rules, or is there some space for flexibility when those rules lead to, some outcomes that feel deeply unjust?
Really makes you think. Okay, and who could forget Donahue v. Stevens?
No, the snail.
The snail in the bottle case. It's a classic, not just because it's kind of gross, but because it changed the way we think about negligence and legal reasoning.
Completely revolutionized it.
Right. And, it established a duty of care between manufacturers and consumers, even when there's no direct contract between them.
It really did. A groundbreaking case.
Right. So remember, when you're studying these landmark cases, don't just memorize the facts. Understand why they matter, how they support or challenge, the theories we talked about.
Exactly.
Think critically.
Think like a lawyer. All right, so now let's decode some of those essential terms you'll run into in jurisprudence. You'll be using these like a pro in no time.
Like you were born with a law dictionary in your hand.
Right.
So first up, rule of law.
Okay.
It sounds pretty straightforward, but it's a bit more than just having laws, right? It's about those laws being fair, predictable, applied equally to everyone, from everyday folks to the people in power.
So it's not just like the rules themselves, but how those rules are made and enforced.
Right.
Right. It's about creating a system where, everyone knows the rules of the game.
Right. And they can trust those rules are going to be applied fairly.
Fairness is key. It's kind of like the guardrails on a highway.
That's right.
Keep everything running smoothly, prevent things from going off the rails, so to speak.
Right, yeah. Okay, now let's talk about justice.
Oh, the big one.
Right. Everyone seems to be chasing it, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah. What is it really?
Is it about fairness, or is it more about, protecting individual rights?
Another one of those fundamental questions. Philosophers have been debating it forever.
Right. It's a tricky concept.
For sure.
Like take John Rawls, for instance.
Okay.
He argues that justice is about, ensuring a fair distribution of resources, opportunities. His veil of ignorance thought experiment is pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, it's a classic.
He asks us to imagine creating a society without knowing, where we'd end up in it.
So like not knowing if you'd be rich or poor, healthy or sick, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
What kind of society would you want to live in?
Right. Would you want to live in one that protects the most vulnerable, or the one that prioritizes individual success, even if it means that some people get left behind?
It's a powerful way to think about fairness.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you've got Robert Nozick on the other side. He's all about, individual liberty. Argues that justice is about respecting those individual rights, even if it leads to, some inequality.
Right. So he's worried that trying to, redistribute wealth or enforce equality, it could step on people's freedom.
Right. Undermine those principles of individual liberty.
So is justice about, creating a level playing field? Or is it about protecting individual liberty?
I don't know. That's the question, isn't it?
Right. Big questions. That's what makes jurisprudence so fascinating.
Keeps us coming back for more.
Okay. And last but not least, rights. They're the foundation of so many legal systems, but where do they even come from? Are they something we're born with, or are they given to us by governments?
Yeah, it's a big one, right? The source of rights.
Right. The natural law folks, they believe certain rights are just inherent to being human, like the right to life, liberty, property. They say these rights exist whether or not governments, acknowledge them.
They're universal, inherent to our very being.
Right. Thinkers like John Locke, he argued that these natural rights, they actually limit the power of governments. Governments can't just trample on those rights because they come before any political system.
That's the idea. They're fundamental.
But legal positivists see it differently, right?
Yeah.
They believe that rights are actually created by legal systems.
Human-made.
Right. They only exist because the state recognizes and enforces them.
It's a matter of perspective.
So are they God-given? Are they embedded in our very nature? Or are they just legal constructs? I mean, these are the kind of questions that they keep you up at night.
That's what makes studying jurisprudence so intellectually stimulating. It really gets the gears turning.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah, or maybe unraveling a complex tapestry. It's a journey.
Exactly. And remember, understanding these concepts, rule of law, justice, rights, it's not just about, sounding impressive at parties.
Right. More than just cocktail party chatter.
It's about giving you those intellectual tools to analyze legal issues, how to articulate your own arguments.
It's about thinking critically, making your own informed judgments.
Exactly. So it's like leveling up your legal vocabulary and your critical thinking skills all at the same time.
That's what we're here for.
Pretty cool.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're picking up right where we left off, getting you ready to tackle those exams.
All right. Back into the ring. We've covered the major theories, those landmark cases, even started to decode some legal jargon. But there's still so much more to uncover.
Absolutely. You know those key jurisprudential concepts we talked about? The rule of law, justice, rights?
Yeah.
Let's dig a little deeper.
Okay, cool.
All right, so rule of law. We touched on it briefly before, but it's often thrown around as this self-explanatory thing, but there's actually a lot more to it.
Right. It's not just like, oh, we have law, so rule of law, check.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about having laws. It's about making sure those laws are fair, predictable, that they're applied equally to everybody. I mean, think about someone like Lon Fuller. He really explored the different dimensions of the rule of law. He emphasized things like transparency, due process, separation of powers.
So it's not just about the rules themselves, but how those rules are made and enforced, right?
Exactly. It's about a system where everyone knows the rules of the game, right?
Yeah.
And can trust that those rules are going to be applied fairly.
Right. Yeah. So it's like the foundation. You need a solid foundation for a stable and just society.
Exactly. Without it, things can really, really fall apart quickly. I mean, you can imagine it's like building a house on solid ground versus, building it on sand.
Right. Right. One's going to stand the test of time, and the other one, well,
Yeah, not so much.
yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about justice. Mm. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, and it's often at the heart of these debates in jurisprudence.
Yeah, I mean, we all have this sense of, what feels just and what feels unjust, but philosophers have been trying to pin down, like, what is it really? What is its true nature?
Right.
And they've been debating it for centuries.
So it's a big question.
Yeah, it really is. One way to think about it is through the lens of distributive justice, which, focuses on how resources and opportunities are allocated in society.
Yeah.
Like John Rawls, we mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
He argued that justice requires this fair distribution of these goods, right? Making sure everyone has a fair shot at a decent life.
Right. And his veil of ignorance thought experiment, it's such a useful tool for thinking about this.
Oh, it really is.
It forces us to step outside of our own self-interest and think about what kind of society we'd want to live in if we didn't know where we'd end up.
Yeah. If you didn't know if you'd be born rich or poor, healthy or sick, what kind of world would you want to bring children into?
Right. It's like designing a game where you don't know which player you'll be.
Exactly.
Right. So you'd want to make sure the rules are fair. Everybody has a chance to win.
Absolutely. Now, on the other hand, you have thinkers like Robert Nozick who they emphasize individual liberty and procedural justice. So they argue that justice is primarily about respecting individual rights, ensuring that legal processes are fair, impartial.
So for them, it's not about guaranteeing equal outcomes, but about creating a system where everybody has the freedom to pursue their own goals.
Right. And where those rules of the game are applied consistently.
Okay.
They worry that attempts to, redistribute wealth or engineer specific social outcomes, it could infringe on people's individual liberty. It could undermine the principles of a free society, they say.
Right. So is justice about achieving a certain level of social equality, or is it more about safeguarding individual freedom? Ensuring those fair procedures. I mean, these are the kinds of questions, that keep you thinking.
That's what makes it so engaging.
That's what makes jurisprudence so interesting. All right. And of course, we can't forget about rights. They're a cornerstone of so many legal systems, and they're often invoked in these debates about justice and fairness.
Yeah, you hear that word rights all the time.
All the time. But where do they come from? Are they something we're born with, or are they granted by governments? It's a question that sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah, it's a fundamental question.
Right. So the natural law folks, they believe that certain rights are just inherent to being human. These are often called natural rights, and they're thought to exist, independently of any government or legal system.
They're part of our very nature, they would say.
Right. So thinkers like John Locke, for example,
Yeah.
he argued that we have a natural right to life, liberty, and property.
The big three.
Right.
Yeah.
And these rights are seen as fundamental. They can't be legitimately taken away by any authority.
It's a powerful idea.
Right. So these natural rights are often seen as limits on the power of government.
Right. Governments can't just, trample on these fundamental rights because they come before any political authority.
Okay. But legal positivists, they have a different take, right?
Yeah, they see it a little differently. They see rights as creations of legal systems. So rights exist because they're recognized and enforced by the state.
So for them,